The Jiu-Jitsu Oracle is back. There has been 3 grappling events happen recently that have caught our eye, and we're going to talk about them in this episode. And then we're setting up a big December where there are 4 big events in the pipeline, and we're going to have lots of coverage of those events on the Jiu-Jitsu Oracle. So like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. I'm Ross. That's Callum. Callum, this conversation is going to involve 3 events. Since we last talked, we've had ADCC East Coast Trials. We've had BJJ Stars.
Yeah.
And then we have had another event. What is it?
The Crown.
The Crown. There we go. So those 3 events have all happened recently. We watched matches from them. I have to say, none of those events really enthralled me, excited me to the point that I wanted to do just a preview and a review solely of those events. So let's chat about the 3 events as a whole in this podcast. Guys, anything you hear us say, get in the comments, let us know if you agree or not. And then by the end of the episode, the Jiu-Jitsu Oracle OP, the Oracle poll, where we are saying who we think are the 6 most engaging, interesting, exciting grapplers in the world just now, will be updated. So, first off, let's pick a standout from East Coast Trials and explain why we have picked that person to highlight. So, coming out of East Coast Trials, who do you think captured your attention the most? Who was most impressive?
I think Dorian. I think he was probably the biggest name going into it. It seemed to be quite underpowered. Same as the European trials, so I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if the bigger stars are a bit fatigued from CGI, if they're expecting invites, if they're not really interested in ADCC anymore. But I think that's the first 2 trials we've had, isn't it? The first European and the East Coast. And yeah, both of them seemed a little bit underpowered, but Dorian was definitely the biggest name in there. He managed to string together 7 wins. A few notable names, including Gavin Corby in the final and Julian Espinoza. So he looked very dominant. Not all submissions, few points victories, but all very clear victories. And I think coming off of his hype at CGI, where he beat Taylor Pearman, Felipe Pena, and then had the match with Ethan that I think he won 10-9 on the judges' scorecards as well. Riding that wave into ADCC, I think a lot of people are excited to see him have another shot at his 66 kilo division at ADCC. And then I also think, given the fact that he had really good matches against some of the bigger guys at CGI, he's going to be an exciting guy to watch in the absolutes if he manages to do that as well.
That 66 division in the East Coast Trials was the one division I was really keeping eyes on. It had Keith Krikorian in it as well. So amongst the guys we've mentioned there, there was some good firepower in that division. I do agree. I thought a lot of the other divisions were a bit underpowered. I thought overall the European trials was stronger across the board, in terms of a couple of the divisions being a bit deeper. It will be interesting to see the second trials, as you said, in Europe and the second trials in America, and whether a lot of grapplers who missed out or chose not to compete this time go in for those ones. I do think the ADCC trials first time around, it missed names like we usually see in the trials, like a Tackett or a J-Rod. Guys of that kind of caliber seem to be missing completely.
Yeah, well, J-Rod, I think people forget about this because J-Rod isn't quite as, because I remember a comment on his video asking why he wasn't doing trials, and I think easy to forget because he's sometimes not the most consistent in super fights, but he did win silver, so he won't need to do trials. But yeah, other guys like Andrew, it'd be a shame if it's the case that they can't do ADCC because of their contracts that they're signed up to. Maybe that's another reason they were a bit underpowered in the trials, so hopefully that won't be the case, but we'll have to see.
I think by the time we get to the ADCC finals in the summer of 2026, those divisions will all be very, very deep. It's just been of late, of the last couple of trials, as ADCC has expanded in popularity, like the trials events themselves have been quite deep and quite exciting. But this time, it wasn't really that case. And I think you're right. Dorian was the standout. And I think like that recent body of work added to what he did at CJI2, added to the fact that he's a way to make his UFC BJJ debut with a really interesting match against Sam the Guy, who's a gi world champion, means that Dorian is definitely one of the top grapplers on the scene right now and deserves a place in our OP. But like where exactly he goes, we'll discuss later on in the episode. But if you want to suggest where you think we should put him, jump in and let us know. Now, we had BJJ Stars. I think there was one standout performance on that show. Mehram Monique with an impressive win over Owen Jones. Mehram, we have seen do mostly gi, or I've seen do mostly gi through his career, stepping into the no-gi scene now, which is great. You're seeing guys like Sam the Guy, someone who I've seen compete mostly gi. Jansen Gomez has competed on UFC BJJ, again, like traditionally gi player, but starting to do no-gi. Mehram Monique, I would love to see Mehram in the South America trials to go to ADCC. They've just been announced, happening early in the new year. So did you saw some of the match with Mehram against Owen. What did you think of seeing Mehram in no-gi, and how well do you think he's suited to the scene, and do you think he could like push on and maybe do well at a competition like ADCC?
Yeah, definitely. I remember seeing him for the first time in no-gi. I think it was like Brazilian Nationals no-gi, or it was like some local IBJJF event, because he does compete a lot in Brazil. Like it seems like he only travels outside of Brazil for the IBJJF, but he does a lot of like this All-Stars event. He does a lot of super fights in Brazil and local competitions, and he looked really good. It kind of spurred that conversation of like, you know, the gi guys seem to be able to take off their kit and do really well straight away in no-gi, whereas you don't really see that as much the other way around, because I hadn't really seen him train or compete much before that. So it's not a surprise that he was able to do well against a guy like Owen Jones. I think the most impressive part was probably the fact that, like you highlighted when we were speaking before, the fact that he was in the zone that you would think would give him most trouble, which is the leg locks in the no-gi game, because that's not as transferable over to the gi, but he did very well surviving that, and then managed to get it more into his zone of like passing and taking the back, and managed to secure the win that way.
Yeah, one thing that really impressed me was that Owen got to his spots against Mehram. So he got reverse closed guard, and he had a couple of entanglements where it looked like he was heading towards maybe being able to set up a short Achilles / trend lock. Like he was still quite far away from getting towards like a finish, but the legs were starting to get into position where maybe that's what the outcome could have been had Mehram not reacted to it. Mehram reacted really well, very elusive. So I think the fact that like he was in positions that are the current kind of meta in no-gi, and was able to deal with them against someone who's very skilled at those positions, is a huge plus for Mehram, and leads me to believe that he could do very well no-gi if he wants to keep competing in it. So he's one definitely like on the cusp of being in our Super 6, top 6. I don't think one win over Owen Jones is enough to like push you right onto the list, but like he's one I'm definitely keeping eyes on. And as we enter gi season, hopefully we get to see Mehram either doing something like the Euros before Worlds, or maybe like there can be a couple of super fights or something, and hopefully he's involved in IBJJF Worlds in 2026. Other than that, you know, there was matches. You know, Yatan Bueno had a win over Big Dan, but like Big Dan's just coming back. I think it was Lyme disease was causing him some trouble with like living, competing and training, had to wait as he was like getting recovered from that. So yeah, not probably like peak Big Dan. Was it Pedro Mourinho beat? Was it Roosevelt? I think. In the main event maybe, and then they seemed to be setting up a match with Mika Galvao. Not like a match that if you've got Mika Galvao under contract and so many matches with him, that's not a match like I'm particularly I would use if I was the booker. But I know Mika said before that he wants a match against Pedro, so maybe they're acquiescent in Mika's wishes. But yeah, not seen Mika in ages, and then like that's not a match that like excites me massively. Yeah, I think Mayram was the standout on that show. And then there was the Crown happened recently, and again, a couple of standout performances. What did you see that like you want to make note of?
Yeah, obviously Adam was back, so he retired fairly recently, but decided to jump back in for this. And looking at his first couple of matches, it seemed like he was going to just kind of do what he does all the way through to the final. I watched the final afterwards. I didn't watch it live. So when I saw it was 6 minutes, that did make me think, oh, I think Adam might lose this, because usually he will secure the win like in the last minute or two. That's kind of his style: sweep, get on top, grind with his pressure pass, and then he'll get his sub from Mount. So that did make me think, oh, maybe Adam got caught with something, and that was the case. So it was cool to see him back, and always fun to watch him game, but his game. But Nolan's obviously the breakout star, having a win against Hulk. Wasn't really sure of the guy that he faced first round, but back to back, beating Hulk in the semi-final, then submitting Adam in the final. That's definitely a big breakout performance from him.
Yeah, Nolan Stewart's been someone who I've been watching a fair bit of in recent couple of years. Very good double sleeve collar game in the gi. Excellent omoplata. He also like it's not just like the omoplata itself that Nolan uses, and like the depth of his game there is well worth looking into. The way like he utilizes different gi grips and postures to like turbocharge the position, I think is well worth watching. So yeah, coming out of the event, like he was the one guy that like in gi class at training, people were like, oh, did you see Nolan? Did you see what he did? And it's like beating two-time world champ Adam Brzezinski is a great feather in the cap. Interesting to see like what division Nolan tries to win worlds at going forward. I think you'll want to dodge Eric Muniz wherever he goes. So and go one lighter than Eric. I would imagine that Adam won't compete worlds, because like it looked like he'd retired at the conclusion of the last worlds, and then he kind of like opened the door to being available for some other stuff. Like I think quite quickly afterwards, he says, I've got a trip booked to Japan and I might still jump in and do a competition. So I wonder if it's like he's had his time doing worlds, but he's still open to like super fights and stuff like that, like the Crown.
I guess from his point of view, it's just a purely thing of whether he enjoys it or not, because he's went out with 2 back-to-back worlds wins. Everyone knows him, everyone likes his game. I'm sure his instructionals do very, very well. So I don't think there's a need for him to keep competing as far as like promoting himself and making money, because I'm pretty sure any major city in the world that he goes to will have him for a seminar, and I'm sure his DVDs are doing very well. So I guess if he feels up for it, he will jump into certain comps here or there, but there's no need to like commit himself to anything.
Yeah. And then also on the Crown, like Eric won. Eric just does Eric things. So like unless he goes above and beyond, he's always worth watching. But unless he goes above and beyond, like he's not gonna be in contention for our OP, I don't think. Andy Murasaki had some good battles. Great win against Jackson the Guy in his final. Great use of guard, particularly X guard. in his matches, but didn't really go above and beyond either, you know. So I think Andy's like, you know, we've talked about it before, like possibly the best active guy without a world title right now, and it seems that he'll win one day, but like he keeps running into roadblocks every year seemingly. So but yeah, he was good. But yeah, I just want to shout out Sarah Galvao. She had 3 good wins. She beat Brianna St. Marie, Cassia Mura, and Jana Ina Lebre to win her division. And yeah, I think like with Sarah, Helena being like the younger grapplers at like the top of the women's scene right now, and then you've still got like Fionn, and then Adele's there as well. I think like the women's scene's really good right now, and like that lightweight division was really strong, and a lot of the grapplers in it are quite young. So and then also we saw Gabby Pisania win, but again Gabby just did what Gabby does. Got a win over Tayani Porfirio in the final, who's someone that she has beaten I think multiple times, but had lost at one of the majors too. So that was a win she wanted, I'm sure. But like Gabby was just typical Gabby. So yeah, I don't think like she's or Eric or anything like stood out. But like Sarah kind of did. I think it was like 3 good wins back to back to back. Anything else you want to say about the Crown?
Not really. No, just when I was thinking when you were speaking about Eric doing Eric things, has he competed in the Nogi, or does he have anything scheduled in Nogi? Because I think that would be a way to make himself stand out. You know, he's obviously building a good legacy for himself in the gi, but the way things are going in the sport and like the notoriety and money you can get from Nogi, you would think he would want to at least throw his hat into there and see how he gets on.
Yeah, only thing ringing a bell with that is no, I haven't seen him compete Nogi, but I do think there might have been an interview where he said he was kind of open to it, and then people started to think, oh, we'll see Eric make the switch. But like, yeah, he is so like probably the best gi competitor in the world right now, you know, across all the divisions. He just never fails to like impress when he competes. But I agree, like I would love to see him be another one of these guys that makes the switch. And we're starting to see more like Brazilians who have been strong competitors in the gi. Some of them we've mentioned already on the pod make the switch, so it'd be great to see Eric make the switch. And perhaps as gi season picks up, we will get the likes of Eric and Mira Monique being on our OP, but they're not quite going to make the cut, I don't think, because they didn't it's not like they won all, like, you know, like subs super quickly, just demolished the people in front of them, from what I remember. So I think that's what they'd have to do at this stage. But if they win Worlds again, you know, they'll be in the mix as like being some of like the top exciting, interesting, engaging grapplers on the scene. So Callum, let's look at our list as it stands off the back of these 3 events. We last time had Mateusz Jasinski at number 1, followed by Helena Cravar, Andrew Tackett, Pavel Yavorski, Craig Jones, and Nicky Rod. Here's my suggestion, and I have consulted with other members of the committee on this already. Nicky Rod basically been well under the radar since his sort of captain's performance at CGI2, winning that last match to seal the victory for the B team. He made his money there. He made his money at the CGI before. Perhaps he's just having some time off as he builds up towards more competition in 2026. But I think Nicky Rod at 6, like he started off at number 1 on our list. He dropped to number 6. Now it's time, I think, for him to drop off because, like, yeah, there's not been any visibility. Position 5 was held by Craig Jones. Craig held that position, was on the list for CGI2, and he even had a match on CGI2. He had a win, although it wasn't much of a match or much of a win against Chael Sonnen, but and he was still like very visible off the back of CGI2, and we've I think it looks like we might get CGI 3. I seem to remember him saying funding has been secured. But, yeah, the Dagestanis got another little victory versus Craig in their sort of friendly little banter battle where Islam Makhachev beat Jack Della Madonna at UFC. So I think, like, just because Craig's been less active, and then after his guy lost to Islam, then I think it's time for him to come off the list. And I think, like, that leaves 4 on the list: Mateus, Helena, Andrew Tackett, Pavel Yavorsky, right? Now, bear with me as I just go through this because it'll help people get understanding what we're doing. We're looking for past performance, like, and what you've got lined up in the future. So that'll help you stay on the list if you've got stuff coming up. So we're not going to, like, punish you greatly if, like, we've not seen you compete recently, but you've got a match coming up, because you might be just waiting for that next match or your contract and you can't really do anything about it, right? So Pavel is going to be in Nogi Worlds from what I've seen. That is the weekend of December 11th. Andrew Tackett has a match against Elijah Dorsey at the next UFC BJJ. That is also on that weekend of the 11th. So we're going to see them again pretty soon. So I think, like, they should stay on the list because of that. Helena had a match in the middle of November on ADCC, which, like, completely flew under the radar, but she got a win. And I see that she's just signed to compete for ONE FC, or ONE, if it's known as that now, early in 2026. She's been very active. She's got some stuff coming up. I think she deserves to stay. And then Mateusz Jasinski, that nobody I've seen compete recently has jumped ahead of Mateusz, given the strength of his performance at Polaris, where he went on an absolute tear, submitting really, really good grapplers. Now, Mateusz, I would say I'd like to see him compete relatively soon again in order to, like, back that up and stay active. But I'm going to give him a little bit of grace because although guys have been competing, like, the only person underneath him on our list that competed was Helena, and, like, that was a match that totally flew under the radar. And then we're waiting to see Andrew and Pavel compete in the near future. So there could be some changes coming up, but I think we retain the top 4: Mateusz, Helena, Andrew Tackett, Pavel, in that order. And then my suggestion is Dorian goes in at number 5, and he could jump higher very soon because he's got another match coming up on UFC BJJ against Sam the Guy. And then we put Nolan Stewart in at number 6 because submitting 2-time world champion Adam Brzezinski off the back of beating Hulk, super impressive. And we're away to enter Gi season, and I think Nolan will be active. Like, he's the sort of guy that will jump in and do a Euros. And people that I talk to that play Gi have been excited about his game and studying it. So I think he deserves to be on the list as well at number 6. And just missing out, Sarah Galvao. And then we had other guys that had just missed out recently, would be Ono Flanagan, Declan Moody and Joseph Chen, but they've not done anything since they just missed out. So that's the OP as it stands. You want to make some comments on it? Because I talked for a bit there.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I could justify putting Dorian above just because he had such an impressive performance as CGI, and then, I think we maybe mentioned him on the first list, or people think he was on the first list actually, and then he dipped off. But I could make an argument for him being higher, but I don't really have much to argue otherwise.
Yeah, the first list didn't feature Dorian, but he was there or thereabouts. First list was Nicky Rod at number 1, Andrew Tackett at 2, Kenta at 3, Craig Jones, Victor Hugo, and then Helena. So it's interesting, like, off the back of that list, which wasn't too long ago, coming out of CGI2, that, like, Victor Hugo, not seen or heard from. And Kenta's kind of dropped off a bit, and Nicky Rod's not been seen or heard from, basically. So, yeah, things change quickly. The next big event, Callum, the Jiu Jitsu Oracle, is definitely going to do some previews and reviews for it and get properly stuck into. Because I think like we could do a whole episode talking about Marcelo Garcia against Lachlan Giles on December 5. And then also on December 5, we've got that WNO show with Philippe Pena against Luke Griffith. I think we've got Diego Pato against DeAndre Corby on that as well. I think Helena will be back out on that show. Just like going off the top of my head. So that's going to be a big one as well on December 5. And then we've talked about a couple of events coming up on December 11 that are going to be big as well. So some stuff for the Jiu-Jitsu Oracle to sink its teeth into in the near future. But let us know what you think of the OP as it stands, of the most interesting, exciting, engaging grapplers. We've got number 1 still, Mateusz Jasinski, but you'll need to do something soon to back that up, because behind them we've got Elena Craver, Andrew Taka, Pavel Yavorsky, who have all matches coming up, Dorian Olivarez, who has a match coming up, and Nolan Stewart, who I think will be big in the gi season heading into Worlds. So let us know what you think of our latest OP. Let us know what you think of the 3 events that we talked about recently. And let us know what you're looking forward to on December 5 with the return of the great Marcelo Garcia. But for now, that's us. Speak to you again soon.